A lot of my work, because this isn't a well-known field, is actually about raising awareness in small ways and on the ground. I first started working in Africa 30 years ago, initially as a volunteer speech and language therapist in Tanzania. So I've done work in Tanzania, in Kenya, in Uganda, in Rwanda and also in Ghana, and then some work, a little bit of work in Sri Lanka. Particular things that have influenced me, I think, have been things like seeing parents of young children really struggling with their children who are not talking and not having any understanding about why their child's not talking, not understanding that there are other ways to communicate other than by talking, that their child might be looking at them or might be encouraged to gesture or to move in a particular way, and to understand that they might be able to exploit and develop that in their children. So that for me is really important. We are learning about refugees who have communication disabilities, and we started off the project by trying to understand about the experiences and services available for people with communication disability who are survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. So it's about trying to understand their context, the appropriacy of services, with a view to see how it might be possible to adapt and develop services to make them more appropriate to the needs of people with communication disabilities. We know that in conflict and humanitarian situations, sexual and gender-based violence, not just sexual but other sorts of financial or psychological abuse, are much more common than in the general community because of the situation of being a refugee, and that's exacerbated even more if you're someone with a communication disability. There have been examples of people talking about someone with a communication disability as being the perfect victim, because you are not able to report, you may not understand what's happened to you, so you're not necessarily going to stop somebody. And we're beginning to understand now that you're more vulnerable to sexual and gender-based violence because you're less likely to have been to school or been part of other kinds of education that have taught you about how to stay healthy, healthy relationships, what's acceptable and unacceptable behaviour. If you need to be able to report to the police, then if you have limited language, then that's very difficult to do that. And we certainly know from examples that people have given to us when someone has been subjected to sexual and gender-based violence, it may be that they haven't been able to tell anybody about that. Working with big international NGOs, speaking at disability events in the UK, whether it's at Westminster or smaller events here at MMU. The humanitarian work that I'm doing that is the sort of wrapper around the work on sexual and gender-based violence is really important, because it's getting the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees thinking much more widely than just sexual and gender-based violence, which was their initial concern, but thinking really widely about how does having a communication disability potentially affect all sorts of aspects of life for refugees. So it's a lot of chipping away, often in small ways, to make changes. The speech and language therapy or communication disability research that we do here at Manchester Met is really unique. During our research, we really try to empower the communities that we're working with. We're working on projects that have been initiated by our partners in those countries. We're not flying in from outside and saying, oh, this is what we're going to do, find us some participants. So for me, that's really important. And also in the work that we're doing, we have a real commitment to helping to develop the skills of the people that we're working with.